Hey guys, I'm back with my complete novel collection 2019. So I'm not going to be including comics in this because that's another video. This is just books I have accumulated over the years. I used to be really into collecting books when I was in lower and middle school. Now I've gotten out of it in favor of DVDs and comics. I think that says a lot about my maturity level, but whatever. So yeah, let's get started. First up is The Chronicles of Narnia, all 7 books. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. There we go, yeah, alrighty. My favorites were always Horse and His Boy and Magician's Nephew. I think I've read this whole series twice, probably, and some of them like 3 or 4 times. I've read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like, that's probably the most I've ever, like, read through a book. They're not, I don't think they're as good as the Harry Potter books as far as, like, quality. C.S. Lewis's writing is very theme-driven. It's not really, Harry Potter is more character-driven. This is more theme-driven, so some of the characters are kind of flat, but I think the allegory and the metaphors and kind of what the stories are supposed to be about, that all really works. Next up is a trilogy of books called Al Capone. They're kind of aimed at, like, middle school kids. I read them when I was in middle school. There's Does My Shirts, Shines My Shoes, Does My Homework. They're all pretty funny, and they're kind of lighthearted comedies aimed at kids, or not kids, but, children. 4 Peter Pan books. I read this one, and part of this one, and I went and saw the play of this one, too. That was pretty cool. It's just an origin story of Peter Pan, how he got to Neverland, that sort of thing. Next up is 2 Brian Selznick books. There's The Invention of Hugo Cabret and Wonderstruck. Those are pretty good books. I like the way he combines illustrations with words. He's a really good writer and a good illustrator. I really like the movie Hugo that's based off this one. Next is The Inheritance Cycle, all 4 books. Sorry about the really bright lighting. It's hard to control the lighting in here. But, yeah, Eragon, Eldest, Brisingar, Inheritance. I think Eldest is my favorite, then Inheritance, then Eragon, then Brisingar. I haven't read these in a while, so I might have to go back and reread them, because they are really well written. They're long, but they don't seem long, because they're well paced and the writing's engaging enough so that it doesn't seem long. So yeah, let me go down to the next shelf. Alrighty, next shelf. Next up is Stephen King's Different Seasons. This has 4 little novellas in it. There's Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, The Body, Apt Pupil, and I believe the 4th one's called Winter's Bone or Winter's Tale. It's called The Breathing Method. Wow, I was really off, but yeah, that book's not in good condition. I read The Body, I read Apt Pupil, and I read Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. The Body is inspiration for Stand By Me, which is my favorite movie of all time, so of course I had to read the book. But yeah, that's pretty good. It's one of Stephen King's better non-horror stuff. Next up is the Jurassic Park books by Michael Crichton. There's Jurassic Park and the Lost World. Those are pretty good. The first one is fairly similar to the movie. The movie stuck to it fairly close. The second one, not as much. There's a lot of differences there. Next up is 4 Walking Dead books. There's Rise of the Governor, The Road to Woodbury, and Fall of the Governor Parts 1 and 2. There's a couple more in the series that I haven't read. I got those back when I was like really into The Walking Dead. They're pretty solid. It's just a lot of the stuff from the comics from the Governor's point of view. Hunger Games, Suzanne Collins, that was popular for a little while. To Kill a Mockingbird, great book. That's one of those books everyone has to read. Steelheart, Firefight, those are 2... I think what are they called? The Reckoners. That's what it is. The Reckoners, book 1 and 2. I have book 3, but it's down on a lower shelf because I didn't have room to put it here. Those are pretty good. I only ever read the first one, but it was really good. I can't wait to read the second one. It's very entertaining, the main character is really fun. It's well written, yeah. Frankenstein, had to read that for school. I think it hasn't aged well over the couple hundred years just due to the language, but like, it's still, the themes and stories still really apply today. Darth Paper Strikes Back, The Secret of the Fortune Wookiee, and Jabba the Puppet. I read those books. They were pretty cool. They're aimed at kids. I read them when I was a kid. I think the first one is Yoda, which I don't even know what happened to that one. I had it at one point. But, they're silly. The Tapestry, that was a novel I read the first 2 in the series of and never got around to reading the 3rd one. And the 3rd one's the only one I have. But, I really like those books. That's why I kept the third one because I thought I might go read it someday. I probably should reread 1 and 2 if I do, but yeah. Joss Whedon. It's called The Complete Collection, the TV series, the movies, the comic books, and more. That's a pretty interesting book. It's a collection of essays about the stuff that he's created. There's a section about Buffy, a section about Angel, a section about Firefly, a section about the Avengers, about Dollhouse, about Dr. Horrible, about Astonishing X-Men, the comic book series he wrote, and even more. And if you like reading essays and articles about kind of the themes and kind of what the deeper meanings and stuff is, that's an interesting read. Next up is The Ables. I only got that because it's the book the guy from CinemaSins wrote. I haven't even read it yet. I'll probably go back and read it someday, though. Next up is Life of Pi. I read that in school, and I remember really liking it, so I went and, what's the word I'm looking for? I bought it, like, with my own money for myself because I remember liking it so much. But, yeah, it's pretty good. It's really philosophical. Yeah, it's good. The Disaster Artist, I wish I hadn't torn that. I accidentally did. It's a really good book right here. It's one of the better books that I've read about filmmaking. It's just an interesting story about the making of, you know, the worst movie ever made. Ready Player One, I saw the movie. I haven't read the book yet. But I'll get around to it eventually. The Hobbit, once again, had to read that for school. It's pretty solid. I think, like most of J.R.R. Tolkien stuff, it hasn't aged well due to the language change, the change in dialect or diction, but, it's still, like, the story's still good. It's still a fun story. Then we have 5 Septimus Heat books, Magic Flight, Physic Quest, Siren. There's a 6th one out called Dark, I believe, that I haven't read. I think I read up to book 4, and, I mean, I liked them okay. You know, I used to be really into fantasy when I was a kid, and those are pretty solid. Then up there on the top we have Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. Great book. If you saw my movie collection, you know how much I like that book. I'm pretty sure it's the only book I've ever, like, had to put down because I was laughing so hard while reading it. So, even though it is funny, it's still a touching story about learning to connect with other people. So yeah, next shelf. So yeah, then over here we have a book called The 11th Hour. This is just some kind of miscellaneous stuff I've had since I was a kid. It's an interesting book. It's a mystery and it makes you piece it together as opposed to the author doing it for you, so it's pretty cool. Dragonology, it's a fictional information book about the study of dragons. Dinosaur Dictionary, I was into dinosaurs as a kid. Every kid was. Next up is, whoopsie, a book called Mythical Monsters. It's got lots of, let me open it up. There we go. Stuff about the different creatures. I used to be really into mythology as a kid and kind of how those legends have evolved. And then another one similar to it called Mythical Monsters, Legends, Fearsome Creatures. I'm really bad at talking today. This one mostly focuses on dragons, but yeah, it's still an interesting, you know, read about different cultures, mythologies, and their different interpretations of monsters. Illustrated books of myths. This just has lots of different myths from lots of different cultures: Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Nigerian, all that types of stuff. Geek Lust, that's a book. Just a kind of silly book about random nerdy stuff. Some Gordon Corman books, Zoobraked, Framed, Show Off, Hideout. There's the first one's called Swindle, but I don't have it. It's you know, it's Gordon Corman. Everyone my age knows who Gordon Corman is. He has a very distinct style of writing, and I think it works for, you know, his target audience. 2 more books. The Detective, Nothing Lasts Forever. I got Nothing Lasts Forever because it's the inspiration for the movie Die Hard, which is like the best action movie ever made. And The Detective is the first one in a series of 2. It's an interesting story. If you know the story of why Die Hard wasn't a sequel to The Detective, it's an interesting read. Next up is 2 J.K. Rowling books, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Quidditch Through the Ages. You can see that, yep. They're published under different names. There's Kenneler the Wisp and Newt Scamander. Those are pretty cool. Just interesting world building about the Harry Potter universe, which there's been way too much of recently, but we can ignore that. 5 Maze Runner books. I read all of them except this most recent Fever Code. These 4 are pretty good. I don't like the Death Cure. That was just not a good ending to the series. But Kill Order and Maze Runner were my favorites. Then we have Not the Life It Seems, a book about My Chemical Romance, one of my favorite bands. We have Calamity, which is the third book in that Reckoner series I was talking about. Then we have some books about filmmaking and about various stuff, you know, books about some of my hobbies. We have Screenplay by Sid Field, a book about how to write a screenplay. Nobody Likes You, a book about Green Day, my favorite band. Marvelous Mythology, a book about the evolution of Marvel characters. I'll Be in My Trailer, a book about how to direct and how to work with actors. Pick Up and Play, how to read sheet music, something I've been interested in learning how to do. Acoustic guitar, whoopsie, I need to tighten up my tripod. I play guitar, but I've never really been good at like fingerstyle acoustic, playing with like your hands, so that's something I wanted to learn how to do. Filmmaker's Handbook and Creating Character Arcs. I'm reading Creating Character Arcs right now. This book of the Filmmaker's Handbook, I want to go back and read it someday. It's so long, I'm kind of like, I might read some of the shorter ones first. But this book is interesting so far. It's talking about how to graft it so that your character, how do characters change over the course of the story, whether it's a book or a movie or whatever. So yeah. Alright, so bottom shelf, I don't know if you can see under there, but I have Ranger's Apprentice, a lot of those books. I used to really like those. Sorry if it's a little unstable. Books 1, 2, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6, 8, and the prequel series, book 1. I had all of them except maybe one of them at one point. I think I lent some of them to my cousins and they never gave them back, but you know, it doesn't matter. Then down here we have a book about finances that my teacher gave me, and 4 screenplays by William Goldman. He's just a really famous screenwriter, and he wrote the screenplays for Marathon Man, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Princess Bride, Misery. And I read the scripts for The Princess Bride and Misery because, you know, those are the two that I had the most interest in. And The Princess Bride is like one of the most quotable movies ever, so, you know. Then we have some S.E. Hinton books, Taming the Star Runner, Tex, Rumblefish, some of Tim's stories. That was Then, This Is Now, and The Outsiders. The Outsiders is obviously my favorite. That's just one of the best books ever written. Sorry, it's not lining up. Then I like Taming the Star Runner. That's really good. And I liked some of Tim's stories a fair amount. And Tex was okay. And then That Was Then, This Is Now, and Rumblefish, not as good, but still good. Let's go up here. I have a lot of Orson Scott Card books. Here's just another miscellaneous one, Ender in Exile, the 5th Ender's Game book. I have the first 4 somewhere. Catcher in the Rye, one of the best books ever written. I love this book. I haven't written anything else by J.D. Salinger. I mean, I haven't read anything else by J.D. Salinger, but this is just a masterpiece, this book is. Behind these S.E. Hinton books, we have more Orson Scott Card books. Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, Children of the Mind, then the Ender's Shadow series, Ender's Shadow, Shadow of the Hegemon, Shadow Puppets, Shadow of the Giant. I read only the first Ender's Game book. I know, that makes me a bad nerd, only reading one Ender's Game book. And then I read Ender's Shadow, and I liked Ender's Shadow more than Ender's Game, honestly. Then I read all of the Ender's Shadow books because I like Bean as a protagonist more than Ender, but I didn't really like them. I remember reading them all, like Shadow Puppets, that third one, I did not like that book at all. I thought it was very dull, very boring, and I mean, maybe it's because I wasn't old enough to understand it at the time, but I was just like, man, this is mediocre. But I liked Ender's Shadow, and I liked Shadow of the Giant, the last one, but the two in the middle, ugh. Now we have a lot of Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. I have the 12th one up here, because I don't have room for it, and then the 3rd one down there. So the only one I don't have is the 2nd one, Roderick Rules. And I'll probably go back, because I have all of them in hardback except these 3. These 3 are in paperback. Go back and get these 3 in hardback someday, but, yeah, those are that's like, once again, a my generation thing. Everyone my generation knows Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Greg Heffley, Jeff Kinney, and I think Jeff Kinney's done a really good job making the books not get boring, because, you know, there's only a certain amount of time you can do the whole Greg Heffley's a spoiled brat, wants to be popular, the books have become self-aware of like how silly this all is, and just, you know, Greg Heffley getting into wacky miscellaneous adventures, and yeah, they're fun. I haven't gotten the one about Rowley yet, but I will. Next up is 4 books, Dragons in Our Midst. Whoopsie, sorry. I only read the first 2, and I didn't really like them as much. So that's why I haven't read 3 and 4 yet. I think there's 6 in the series total. They're good Christian literature, you know, if you're into that. But they didn't really grab me, not for religious reasons, but just because I think just the plot and story and characters just didn't really grab me that much. So yeah, I think that is it for my book collection. I have a fair amount I haven't read. You know, I have a lot of comics. I have a lot of DVDs. You know, I kind of got out of reading, which I should read more. I should read more real books. I know I should. But yeah, maybe once I get my own place and move out of here, I'll get like a big bookshelf where I can keep all of this stuff. But as for now, this is all I have. So yeah, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Bye.